don't start in the deck. And yet what I will say is that here in Grandmasters, we have quite consistently seen players who have massively hurt their chances of taking the win, even playing or playing against these decks that generate a lot of extra cards. I appreciate that it can be frustrating to play against something that didn't start in the deck, but I will say that whether you're going for, like you said, the decks that don't create cards or the decks that do, there's a lot of percentages to be gained by the stronger players in Grandmasters.
That's right. There are situations where you can't play around much and definitely unpredictable outcomes, but there's also a lot of situations where when you've had more experience with creating things, then you tend to know how to navigate the created things a bit better. What I will say for Alan, though, is for his one deck that does fall in the more clowny half of decks, as some of the GMs would put it, the Priest, he has instantly, whenever we've seen him on screen, navigated all of the tough late game situations very, very well. We've seen him play for max defensive lines against Bomb Warrior and preserve his health total. And in terms of macro game plan, I feel that Alan is one of the very best we have here in APAC. So it's apt that he's going up against our very best performer in Season 1.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Alan is just head and shoulders above most of the players that we have seen come and go over the few seasons that we've had here in Grandmasters. And I think, honestly, a big part of that is actually just how confident he seems to be in himself. Like, a lot of our players, despite being very strong, in my opinion, I feel like they doubt themselves. Where, honestly, I feel like Alan has never doubted a decision he's made in his entire life. And probably justifiably so, because they just tend to be correct.
Yeah, the only thing I would be confident enough to argue with Alan about is keeping Apprentice. But other than that, absolutely, I would cower in the fear of his BM prowess.
Well, pretty strong start for Glory here. Obviously, we've talked time and time again about how Hanar is not exactly what you want to be doing against these slower decks in the non-aggro matchups, because you're developing value rather than necessarily valuing tempo. But at the same time, it is still a pretty decent start here if you're not hitting the Edwin/questing.
It is true. And already Alan has to ask himself, how scary is this Hanar? Because there is a very ugly clear available if you want to hit this turn. I don't think that's the line, but you have to just bear it in mind, because Hanar sticking can wreak havoc, as we saw with the first half of Surrender's game against Yugi's Druid.
Yeah, I think if it didn't have to use the coin, I would definitely consider going for it here, just even if it used up the reduction on overgrowth. The fact that it uses up the reduction and a coin to clear off the Hanar, I would rather just ignore it, very possibly for like 3 turns, and just go with overgrowth, Ysera, draw a bunch of dragons. Like, his own game plan at the moment is so powerful.
It's true. The clear on Hanar, even though it uses coin, would have left Innervate in hand, but that's a problem in and of itself,
right,
because after you innervate the overgrowth, you're not doing very much. You want to save the soft ramp for post-overgrowth to get Ysera down as soon as possible. So I think it's right for Alan to bite the bullet here. And yes, Glory has drawn some cards, but if there's no big Edwin or questing to pay off, then Alan's line is definitely warranted.
And I think I just like Dirty Tricks again on this turn for Glory. Like, I know he's starting to run into hand space issues, which you do need to be somewhat afraid of, but I just want to draw to Questing or Edwin. Like, I want to start turning these cheap cards into actual threats.
A solid point. And Dirty Tricks also allows you to play a Hunter spell here. Glory went for Disruption, which, if you want to keep cycling, relegates you into having to take the Paladin spell if you want to spend all your mana. He did end up taking Freezing Trap, which is worth it for maximum disruption. So already I think we're seeing Glory's game plan is to leverage this Hanar as much as possible and just make Alan's life as difficult as it could be.
Yeah, there was obviously the line he could have gone for of Shadow Stepping the Hanar to go like as all in as you possibly can go on just making sure it stays alive. I do think that was probably a step too far at that point, given that it's fairly likely to survive the turn no matter what.
I think the Shadow Step is looking pretty valuable as well with the double Blackjack Stunners in his hand.
Yeah.
So for Alan, even if there is a counter spell loaded up, he can just get down the Ysera still because he has 4 bits of ramp in hand.
Yeah, the question needs to be begged though, but at what cost? Because if he goes for Coin is Dispelled, Bloom, Innovate Ysera, he's then down to 5 on the following turn, which does nothing whatsoever.
This is a really tough turn. I honestly am not completely aware of the interaction of Coin, Spellburst, and Counterspell all at once.
Right,
it just starts to get a bit confusing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is that just the spell was never played. Like, it does, it's as if you hadn't played it.
And that means that you don't immediately get all of the benefit off of Omu. But because he saved the Lightning Bloom, he had enough mana then to go for Overflow and get the clear on the Hanar. Overall, very good.
Yeah, it's a big deal getting the clear on Hanar. The real difference was obviously whether you go for Ysera and leave it up on that turn. And I think, as I said, because of how weak of a turn it would have left him with, I do like the decision of what Alan went for in the end. I think I'm happy with just Thresher.
It feels bad to play Thresher without rushing it out, but I'm not seeing a much cleaner play. He's already used a Broom anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I think like you just play it here. You probably hold back the Iron Bark as well. Innovate Ysera. You don't know if it's pressure play after that point, so maybe you hold back the Iron Bark again. But the point is that you're just quite rapidly moving towards your own win con, and all the while, the Rogue here is currently doing absolutely nothing until they hit one of the big, fat minions.
And it's a great point that, yes, they can disrupt, but as you said, if they're not putting down pressure alongside it, Alan has all the time in the world to replay minions after minions, so I can understand why Glory goes for Secret Passage here, but yikes, is that a bad outcome.
Yeah, like, he gets to spend his mana, which is something, but it's not game-winning yet, and the Pyromancer is just kind of bad as well to generate alongside this.
And for Alan, he knows this is not ambush because he played a minion last turn, so he could just play Ysera this turn, call it a day.
Yeah, obviously knows it's not plagiarize as well.
So he would be giving Glory the 2 draws from Dirty Tricks by going Innervate. But after that, he can start popping off with Overflow, get all the dragons down. Oh, this is interesting. So, by starting with the reinforcements, he is getting rid of cards in hand in order to go for Overwatch.
Right, and what this also does is it plays around the pressure play I was talking about, because it's a spell that generates a minion which would have triggered it at the same time. I think this is very smart.
Give me a quest.
That looks clean to me. And also having the 2/2 hidden behind it one. The off chance it survives, you can also maybe play around with the trap. Was that? Oh my goodness, the order from Glory.
Oh, Glory, no. Okay. Again, this is what we need to see from Glory. He's made a mistake. It's fine. It's going to happen at some point. Everyone makes mistakes, big or small, in a series of Hearthstone. How you move beyond it is the mark of a good player. Let's see some not getting bogged down in it. We're just carrying on, doing strong stuff.
Right. I think if he was aware of the Pyro or of course he's aware, but just cognizant and thinking about it in that turn, we would have ended up with a board state with 2 more 1 health minions, and he would have gotten 2 more damage in, and the questing would have had 1 more HP on it, I believe. So overall, I want to say it's not a huge deal, but we'll determine that later on.
We will indeed. Guardian Animals, massive draw here for Alan, because I believe even with the freezing trap, as long as he plays around this cleverly, he should be able to get himself a guaranteed full clear.
It's already a big deal. The health on the questing means that the Thresher and Crystal Power is enough to clear it off.
Absolutely perfect here. And to be fair to Glory, if he'd played out an extra card there in the form of the remaining stunner, even if he targeted one of his own guys, it still would have been possible to clear the questing with just attacking with the Thresher first and then Twilight Runner into it.
Yes.
Biggest guy.
Best spot he's ever gonna get to play Deathwing.
Yep, by miles.
Okay, good start with a taunt. Oh,
Just overflow.
get the dragons down. Yeah, on average, this is gonna get him way more stats than Exotic Mount Seller.
Challenge the daughter of Deathwing?
Okay.
Room enters the hand at the last possible minute. That's huge.
Do you go with Broom here?
Oh, I don't know. It's really close. Because
Like,
the traits,
just-
they're not pretty.
Exactly, and like just going Wild Growth on this turn sets up for a stronger Mount Seller next turn, right? If you hold the excess mana, obviously then you're overdrawing another card, which is another reason to go for the Broomstick instead.
Super close. I think I would just play the Broom, given that there's still 4 Dream Portals in the deck. It's just under 50% to overdraw one of them, so...
I think it's surprisingly close there, actually.
Well, I think Alan knows that with Ysera replayable in the next turn, plus Mount Seller, he's not going to be losing the value battle. So as long as he makes sure that there's no possible like stunners clear into the Deathwing sticking another turn, then he should be in a good spot. The Dark Portal.
Dark Portal. Let me just Google exactly what the text is on that card, having never played it ever.
Honestly, I don't remember either. It just costs
I know it
less when
reduces
you
the
have
card.
yeah or something.
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember if it is like just demons only or something. Draw a minion. If you have 8 or at least cards in hand, it costs 5 less. That's a pretty big deal with Edwin Van Cleef alongside that.
Okay, put Dark Portal in every rogue deck. Apparently, it tutors Edwin Van Cleef.
Okay, well, we'll take that.
This is just replay your Deathwing
Yep.
and develop the Underbelly Fence.
That was absolutely disgusting. Sap, I mean, just play Vendetta because you can, I guess, for +2/+2.
Maybe Vendetta had some utility to play around like Tears Pet. By that point, you just want Edwin to get through every single time. Not sure.
It's close, isn't it? I think I just want the biggest guy I can possibly get, and 16/16 is pretty big.
Yeah, bigger than Deathwing. That was the most insane Dark Portal I've ever seen. It was also the only Dark Portal I've ever seen.
Not an especially high bar, but I think Edwin pole vaulted clean over that one nonetheless. The Broomstick not being sapped back is obviously a big deal here. Or, sorry, no Broom at all to be played here is a big deal. As was kind of the downside of Alan's play on the previous turn, but at the same time, you're never expecting anything quite this dreadful to come down.
Job done.
Praying for more dragons off the top here as Alan Font is somewhat useful.
Yikes!
He just gives the Mount Seller play right back. But to be fair, I don't think Alan could have both mitigated, plagiarized, and stayed alive that turn.
Oh no, yeah, I mean, he had to go for it this way, but oh my goodness, is this a powerful play from Glory. How was this turned around so quickly? I thought Alan was just locking out the game.
The Dark Portal, Derek. The Dark Portal.
Oh my god. Crip was right all along, we just wouldn't listen.
So... You do want to clear the Mount Seller without having to commit the Edwin into it. So we could see Crystal Power Fence instead. It involves a lot of trades over the Mount Seller.
Right, so if you go Fence into the 3/3, you can then trade everything else with a Crystal Power into the Mount Seller, right?
Yeah, that's what
but
I
it do-
thought was gonna happen. But
Yeah.
to be fair, maybe the Mount Seller isn't even that scary at this point.
Choose soon.
Yes, you've seen the broom, right? That's all we are really afraid of is rushing minions.
Actually, I think this is super smart from Glory. It's survival that's the scariest thing by this point. Alan has used almost all of his soft ramp and the broom. And so leaving a singular Mount Seller while you're threatening 2-turn lethal is probably more effective than leaving several minions that can get all buffed by survival.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, gotta be 4 Griffins to get rid of the Edwin.
Well, that's 0, so good start.
The taunt, though, can develop another taunt.
Uh-huh.
2 more beasts with the overgrowth.
Uh-huh. It's not terrible. Pretty good.
Still 3 Dream Portals in the deck as well.
Yep, so he can now take out the opposing Mount Seller with his minions on board, which is a pretty big deal.
Yes.
Ooh, another Taunt and a Lightning
Whoa!
Bloom. Okay.
Nature's Pet?
Okay.
Okay. He's in this.
Yes, you go Bloom, Ironbark, trade in the Zigzord, then you play a Beast. Right?
Correct. It's difficult. Okay. I guess he's not doing the Mount Seller altogether.
Do we like that? I think it's still a little bit wrong. I think he was getting a bit hurried there, but like, you have to kill the Mount Seller, right? They have so many ways to generate cheap spells. You know they have
Yeah.
Wild Growth in hand.
That's fair. At the worst, Glory can just Plague of Flames this. You might
Can you
have
imagine?
to. Because survival is super scary.
Oh my god, is that seriously where we're at?
Can he
I
play
mean-
around survival for lethal? I don't know. How much
You
is
can
this
go-
fireball doing?
Trade. Mirror Image is a pretty big deal in terms of getting taunts in the way, but he goes for the Fireball instead. Okay.
It sucks to
it
give up
can't
this
be
Edwin.
correct.
It sucks, but he can at least go Jandis afterward. Okay, how much is this actually clearing? I am unsure. Okay. Hard to... Yeah, that should make you survive. Okay, Glory found the line.
Good job. I was about to throw my desk over. I think if he Plague of Flames away a 16-16 Edwin.
Yeah, there's a way to survive around survival that didn't involve that. Oh, sorry, I didn't even realize Alan was overloaded. That's a big deal.
Right. Okay. Well, obviously we're looking at the most defensive maneuver available for Alan on this turn, right? So trade, and then I guess do you want the Emerald Explorer in play? Just to
Right?
taunt? Which allows you
Yeah.
crystal power as well.
Mhm. And then
Can
you
do some
shoot
stuff.
The 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
It is some stuff, but he's down to his last taunt aside from the Emerald Explorer. It gets pretty scary.
There's no way you can draw Zixor after sacking in on this turn. Hmm.
Nope. If only he had a broom for this poisonous, but he's not. He goes in. Porcupine into the Mount Seller first. I suppose this order is better. Very low odds of actually doing anything relevant. Couldn't make it.
Worm, I think, probably is where my head's at. Or Alex, sure. Maybe he gets a surprise lethal next turn, you never know.
Okay. Fireball.
Yes.
Trade. You can get 16 to face.
Right. So you could Fireball face and hope to hit some other way to answer the 4-8, right?
He's used double stunner. In the deck there is one thief and a vendetta, but if you go passage to get vendetta, then vendetta won't be active necessarily.
Doesn't necessarily need to be active though, right? Maybe with the way the mana works out. Ooh.
Okay, one thief activates vendetta. that
That's-
looks like GG.
Yeah, I think that's got to be it. Arcane Breath just for 2 more damage. He can then go trade. As long as there's no taunt in the Teacher's Pet, I think that's just game over at this point.
Correct. Well spotted from Glory, and I do think that Edwin has been cleared to go face. Wow, that was intense.
Okay, there we go. Glory seemingly not happy about how that one shook out, as we have another chair victory here for our players, literally unable to stay in his desk until the end there. It was a close one indeed.
Oh, the stress is real here. Glory, he tweeted out back-to-back championships, so that's why he's put the pressure on himself.
He has indeed. He's a single loss away from just being out of the running entirely against Alan, but a very impressive win nonetheless. Like, we can talk about some decisions that could have been made, obviously, to improve his chances in the mid game, messing up the Pyromancer thing that I think really shook him quite drastically there, because this is what I've been saying about Glory as a player. When he's at his best, when his head is in the right spot, he is as good as it gets in Grandmasters, not even just APAC. I think across all the regions, he is a true world-class talent. But he just needs to make sure that he doesn't beat himself up for these mistakes, because he is very self-punishing. He doesn't forgive himself for making these mistakes along the way. But thankfully for his sake, he was able to keep it in check until the end of that game, at least.
Yeah, to be fair, after we saw that mishap with the Pyro, he did pick himself back up almost immediately after, and it took quite a bit of mental fortitude to see the overall game plan there, because he was super behind against Alan's wide board, but with some well-timed stunners, the Deathwing, and then leading up finally to a big Edwin. Glory was able to leverage that small window in his tempo. To be fair though, Alan, I think, is still in a pretty decent spot in this series overall, because I'm confident in his priest play, and I think that Druid with Mount Seller has quite enough punch as well.
We shall have to see. Can he turn things around? Obviously, Alan only has one chance here in the top bracket. He ended up obviously coming in from Division B. You get an automatic loss just to give the players who did manage to qualify through to Division A a little bit of an advantage. It means it's an incredibly slim, narrow victory, or slim chance for Alan to get through to the World Championships. He would have to win 4 series of Hearthstone in a row with not a single loss allowed to get there. But if anyone could do it, I believe in good old Alan. When we come back from the break, we're going to see if he can do exactly that, or if it is going to be Glory going on for a rematch against Bank Yugi in the decider match. We'll see you very shortly. This is the elimination match for the day. We've already sent one player in surrender through to the semi-finals on Sunday. We still have 2 more matches before we find out who the second player going through is. And then, of course, our match between Tyler and Dawn to find out who is sadly going to be creeping closer towards relegation, but who is going to be safe in our final relegation match for the day. Glory and Alan is our match happening right now, though. And Glory, despite not being all too happy with himself, Gia, was able to take the win in the first game of this series and puts himself in a pretty good spot, as you always are, at 2-1 up. But not the end of the world for Alan quite yet.
Definitely not. Alan himself is bringing Druid, which notably from, say, Surrender's lineup, who's always been traditionally a staunch Druid player, has left out. So it's definitely a contentious class at the moment, especially since Alan is not bringing 2 of what I believe are the strongest archetypes at the moment in Secret Rogue and Tempo Mage. But I think Alan can still justify the use of Druid, especially the Mount Seller build is not something many people will have on their mind. So maybe you can try and corner Demon Hunters here and there. He also has Priest, which has also somewhat risen in popularity in APAC this week in particular. So I wonder if people have just had more time to test Priest and feel like they're better on the deck, or if it was a better meta call going into playoffs.
Maybe. I think it's a couple of things paired for me. I really, really like the build that Alan has gone for here with the no Galakron. I think is very well suited to the current metagame because there's few matchups where I feel like it's quite worth. It would still be like the 31st or 32nd card I'd include. It's really, really close. But having the Cabal Shadow Priest, the Twilight Drake, I think really perfectly plays to what is powerful about the deck at the moment, which is these big tempo swings, dominating the board right from the get-go. Not going to see that quite yet as we are focusing on the Druid once again, first of all. And it's got a decent matchup for sure against the Mage, a little bit better than against a Rogue, but far from a free win.
It's true. Mage, obviously, their best way of winning the matchup is just landing Shanvala, which often does not get answered on curve, and then popping off with Apprentice afterward. But for Glory, I wouldn't be surprised to see him just keep the middle cards as an on-curve play, but he's a keep mana giant player.
Oh, I'm so glad. I was gonna bring this up because, like, you have the 1, you have the 2. They both generate a spell, so giant is gonna be cheap. I love this keep. I think this is so smart.
Okay. I mean, the thinking is definitely there. I personally believe it still requires either a Cyclone or an Evocation to justify, but we'll see how it plays out. One thing that's for certain is Alan is a god at nature studies. He just rips the overgrowth.
Yes, I mean, Alan's side is like a little bit more simple, but genuinely, with the coin here, if you go 1 into 2, if you're if your Spellwing is able to die, you then have played 3 spells that didn't start in your deck when you count the coin. That's a turn 5 giant right there. Or turn 4 even with the coin, right? You're coining up to 5, then you can just get giant down on turn 4.
True, but
that's strong.
That's actually very heads up from Alan to not kill off the Spellwing. On the turn 2, he went face there, realizing that he doesn't even want to give Glory spells to either charge up a Cyclone or cheapen a Mana Giant. Alan is not going to be playing minions either until he goes super wide, so that means that Glory would not be able to kill off the Spellwing himself.
Yep, just keep spending all your mana, generating your cards. Oh, potion versus Mirror Entity.
I was super interested in
potion. Yeah, I mean, Mirror Entity against this build of the deck is very, very tempting because, like, unless they want to play Broomstick first, which they do not want to, spoiler alert, is going to be very powerful.
Ay, though. Guardian next turn for Alan with the Innervate in hand. Now I think it's okay for him to deal with a Spellwing and keep the board a bit narrower for when he goes GA next turn.
Agreed. You want to be able to try and target something with Thresher. Oh, even then, a card has been kept in the starting hand. Like, are you having the read on Mana Giant, or are you having the read on, like, Sorcerer's Apprentice and some big kind of Apprentice turn where they want to play as many missiles as possible?
I don't know. Alan is committed to leaving these up, which, to be fair, if he gets a single Thresher, he can still just deal with 4 minions.
Right.
But
so interesting.
Secret from Glory is a little bit scary. The good news for Alan is he can test with Innervate first. Or do you even test with Iron Bark first if you would really want to get GA down? Well, now that he has Lightning
got the
Bloom, he can do
bloom.
whatever he likes. But before he drew that, it was.
Whoa, he's going with the Mount Seller entirely overall. Okay, let's go.
Very likely to get the full clear with the broom. Oh my goodness! That's not legal.
That's
That is not
insane.
legal.
Oh my god, that's so powerful.
Yep. Holds Bloom because he has GA next turn.
Quite the swing turn there from Alan, and obviously the best possible follow-up as well in the form of Guardian Animals. But maybe, just maybe, Glory is able to swing things back enough with the Giant in hand. Probably
Man,
not.
Giant feels pretty slow. I think it's time to go digging for Apprentice Evocation.
Really?
something
Okay.
like that. Okay, Vaporize is interesting, but he can't target the 3-2.
I mean, I was honestly looking at Font of Power there to try and find another Giant or an Apprentice.
True. Also just generate something else for Giant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Not dealing with the 3-1 is a big deal here.
Does he not want to trade in and play another Missiles first to try and deal with the 3-1?
I thought so too.
That felt much stronger to me.
I agree. Oh, and you also just remove the 1-1 as a Thresher target if you trade it in.
Right. That was quite a lot worse, because it also means that his other mana Giant is just a full mana cheaper for if he wants to spend his mana on other things next turn.
Missed opportunity from Glory there, I think. I don't see any heart in the Lightning Bloom this turn for Alan because he'll still have enough mana for Overflow next turn.
Yeah, the one concern is obviously your health total. You go down to 12 up to 17 with Overflow. That's probably just fine, isn't it? Yeah.
Time waits for no one.
Wow, this couldn't be a more direct, in-your-face punish for not trading in the 1-1 there, could it? It means the 3-1's still alive and the Thresher gets the clean value trade.
Sorry, I thought you were gonna say a punish for keeping Giant there. But,
Oh, no.
okay.
I mean, yeah. That was the best play this game.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I've been on board with.
To be fair, it's still a decent Giant. Freeze the Mount Seller. 3 on the left, and he can play Giant. I guess you can also just play the Missiles.
Yeah, that's true.
Really?
Interesting.
This leaves more attack to play, but I suppose they never ever want to trade Mount Seller into Giant.
That's true, yeah. Kind of a close one. I mean, either way, it's just like even better now. Like, you take a value trade, you can bloom out your Crystal Power to heal up your Mount Seller back up to full and fill your board up
also-
completely.
All so disgusting.
Yeah.
Save it all together for the second Mount Seller, sure.
Sure, why not? It's just over. No Solarian is
I never want to
throat.
say over against Temple
Oh.
Mage, but it certainly feels like.
It has to be over now, right? Like, he's pretty much just dead. Like, a single survival of the fittest, and it's just over.
I mean, it's not in hand, and
Okay,
I also want to say a single Apprentice and Evocation can
alright.
make miracles happen.
I won't call it over. But I won't call it a comeback either.
Not with this hand.
Yeah, no real reason to overcommit. This gives you the highest chance of finding the survival of the fittest next turn as well.
Okay, we're looking for exactly Apprentice Evocation. We will settle for Apprentice Frost Nova. You can't even generate Frost Nova.
Yeah, you need like 5 Ray of Frost, right, for it to
Yeah.
even be a thing here.
Uh-huh.
Not
That's
quite.
not- Okay, it's over.
Unlucky there. So, I mean, that was one of the few times where we've actually got to see the game plan of holding on to Giant. I will say that the only thing that stopped a turn 4 Giant coming down was Alan's inspired line of just leaving up the spell wings for as long as humanly possible. And it meant that he was able to stop the turn 4 Giant coming down, which, who knows, maybe would have been enough to fight back against all of that. If it had been, Mirror NC plus a Giant, I don't know how it exactly would have worked out with all the mana available. But the point is basically just that I don't hate the idea from Glory, even if the mid-game execution did become a little bit sloppy.
It probably works against every other player than Alan, who would kill these spell wings early on.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, Glory is not naturally running Conjurer's Calling
Right.
in his list, so I feel like that's one point against trying to get Giant down as soon as possible, because maybe after the second 8/8, it's a little bit too slow against GA. I'm very happy that we got to see it play out, though, because I feel like every time we see this matchup, you bring it up about keeping the Giant, and they never do it, so we can never really see one way or another.
It's very specific hands that you're doing it with, I will admit. I'm a little bit zealous just for the sake of the for the sake of the joke, but I do think that it did make sense from Glory to do so. Sorry, even if it didn't quite work out in the end. Alan equalizes, takes a win with the Druid. Not the biggest of deals, I will say, taking the win with the Druid, because I feel like that was quite likely to get a win at some point, given that there was obviously still the Demon Hunter. But the main thing is just that he doesn't have to three times beat any singular deck in the Demon Hunter. And so it's still looking very arguably favored for Alan, but still pretty even.
It is true. Definitely like the Demon Hunter versus Mage matchup, but this one, the Demon Hunter versus Priest, I feel is very, very contentious. It can go one way or the other, and I believe you can get a huge skill edge here no matter which side you're playing from, because Demon Hunter, the way they use Blade Dance, the way they charge up all the damage on one turn, can be a very, very big deal, and also how much respect they pay to Apotheosis.
I mean, already there is just so much going on with this starting hand. Single keep Skull of Gul'dan on the play instead of the coin is a very slow approach to the matchup. It's Priest. You're not going to die in the first few turns, but if you let them dominate the board early on, you could very much be in some trouble if you're not finding the chip damage.
It's true. I mean, it feels bad to do on the play, but I'm of the opinion that this is one of the matchups where you do need Skull to get there in the end. I think if you play out your normal curve and don't cheat any mana, the Priest can heal up out of range and lock you out towards the game, towards the end of the game. In these matchups, similar to Libram Paladin, the way that the Demon Hunter plays out is you need to hold on to Kayn until it deals the kill. So, being able to cycle consistently is very important.
I really like what Alan's going for here in tempoing out the Twilight Drake as soon as he possibly can, even with the one consume magic in the list from his opponent, which is the Punish. They're not keeping it, they're not looking for it. I think it's perfectly reasonable to go for this from Alan.
Oh, additional Murazond.
Oh, the only thing that could possibly make me not go for that is the immediate tempo that Brightwing gets you. I know it's not much, but it's more than a 1/1. Probably not worth overgoing Murazond.
You don't pick the ones.
That's at least cycle for Glory, and I feel like he should just play it for the card draw. Because right now, the Lapidary is not even active. He doesn't have a next turn play.
I think I actually disagree with you on that one. I think there's enough good targets. I know that the one natural Twilight Drake has been played, but just the value of getting rid of an Apotheosis without having to target anything with it, I think is okay. It can just equal a lot more damage in the long run.
It's fair. The way I look at the matchup is when a skilled Priest player finds the time to land on Apotheosis, you've probably already lost because they immediately get the healing, whether it's from Pyro or a big minion sticking. I think holding Consume Magic for Apotheosis is pretty useful for when the Priest is forced to play it in a spot just to remove a minion and they don't heal that much. But it feels like Glory has fallen super far behind.
It does feel like that right now, but I mean, to be fair, this is kind of the game plan that he was playing to. By holding on to Skull, he knew that he was likely to fall behind at the start, and then he was going to try and wrestle it back later on, because he only needs one big blade dance turn to swing this all back and be in the lead again.
That's fair. Oh my gosh, how many Murazons can one man play?
Oh, it's close. Like, Mage Scribe is obviously better on the very next turn, but if you're playing the Mage Scribe, you're not playing 7-mana Murazond on the turn after, which you very possibly want to have access to at the very least.
Overall, this is probably safer from Alan because he didn't have the cleanest play for next turn. If he had taken the Murazond, Mage Scribe lets him fill out his mana and generates. Sorry, I didn't. Oh wait. He got the Spirit Jailer off the top last turn.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty good.
That's super awkward because they're locking the other skull in.
Yeah, I mean, do you mind just like equipping one, start swinging, equip the second one next turn, and then you're likely to be able to just go for the skull next turn if you have to?
I mean, I think he minds the play because it's a very inefficient use of the Warblades, but he does have to go for it because the hand as it stands really needs Blade Dance.
It does, yeah. And also, like, my opinion about Eldrazi Warblades in the matchup is if you don't give your opponent an insane turn with them, they're already okay, right? As long as you don't let your opponent Murazond, Blade Dance, plus a bunch of attack buffs, you're just fine.
Oh no, this puts the Demon Hunter in a weird spot where they actually might run out of healing and can get pressured by the priest. But I think that's the Blade Dance off the top. Okay. That's so big. Lapidary. Oh, not enough mana.
Yeah, it's not perfectly clean. Like, you could try and set up on this turn with the Shard Shatter Mystic.
He could, yes, and just re-equip the Eldrazi with the Horde Pillager afterward. You tank a fair bit of damage.
Like, the main thing to bear in mind, I think, is that what you don't want to do is you don't want to have to play Eldrazi and the attack buffs and the Blade Dance all in the same turn, because then you get hit with a big Murazond.
Correct. So as long as he ends the turn with an Eldrazi equipped.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, this is a super low value Blade Dance if he's going for it. Okay.
Interesting. Is he going to clear with this, or is he going face? He has to be going face, right? Yeah.
This felt unclean. That's not to say that it's wrong. But you can see Glory's mindset is that if he doesn't clear some of the minions this turn, it's very possible Alan goes wider, and then Blade Dance isn't even guaranteed to get through the tallest minions, but it feels bad.
It does feel bad, but to be fair, he played all the attack buffs plus Eldrazi into turn 7, so he's not weak to the Murazond. He gets a lot of damage to face. Soul Shard Lapidary into Soul Shard Lapidary is still a very powerful couple of turns. After he, I suppose, would play the Skull to try and draw through to more Soul Fragment Shufflers.
Alan gonna commit the first Apotheosis here. Good spot to do so. This is a matchup where you don't get that much healing from the Pyro Apo combo because the Demon Hunter doesn't go all that wide on board. Oh, the Skull is so stuck.
Yeah, I mean, you can just go Panthara and try and find Soul Shear off of the Skull of Gul'dan, obviously, afterwards, which is, I guess, what he's going for, in addition to just, like, finding decent cards.
Poor warlock.
Yeah. Good spot. He absolutely needed Soul Shear to not give Alan too proactive healing.
Yeah, that is an absolutely massive difference now. Alan's hand is too full as well to be going for a Murazond in response to this, I imagine, so he's going to have to try and piece something else together, which is a little awkward. Like, he can start to go for Breath, Mind Flayer, plus Holy Smite all in one turn, which is okay.
I wonder.
it was okay, but I think Alan's greater concern in the long run is he doesn't have healing in hand. So I'm okay with spending the mana to get the Kobold down because I think he was searching for renews and radiances, and to the point where it's gonna be Wave of Apathy to make space in hand and just heal for 1, essentially.
Yikes. I mean, I was kind of looking at Inner Fire there, more likely on that turn, just to clear board, because I appreciate he's saving 1 health here, but I think that can save a lot more than 1 on subsequent turns.
True. Okay. He has,
I
however,
grow
generated a very
impatient.
sticky minion, which threatens Apotheosis, if nothing else.
That's true. So Glory does need to be afraid of that. That could come in the form of like Soul Shard plus Blade Dance, and then trade in the 1/3 as well to finish it off.
Oh, it's super close. Okay, he's choosing not to respect Apotheosis here, which nets him a Blade Dance, and because he's not playing Blade Dance, he saved the double Lapidaries as well.
Wow, that
Oh
is a
my
big
goodness.
top deck, though. Oh my goodness. He can go Apotheosis plus Inner Fire for an extra 3 healing as well.
Yeah, 8 damage healing. Why do I say damage healing? 8 points of healing.
Is that better than sticking
And
it on
the
the
Shadow Word Death.
Pyromancer? Probably, yes.
He can get more, I think, from the Pyro, but it would involve tossing some spells he might not necessarily want to toss.
Board control gained, lethal pulled well out of range from here with this top deck from Alan. It cannot be overstated how important that was for him to find.
And that Soul Fragment draw for Glory is devastating because there's only the 1 fragment left now. He was relying on being able to play both the Lapidaries here.
So, Horde Pillager, Soul Shard, Blade Dance is a clear, right?
Yes.
Which is a huge deal.
But you leave a Glaive Bound on the other side. We could see, like, Shard Shatter and then Horde. Oh no, he doesn't even have Marrow Slicers, right? It was only
Right.
the Aldraki's played, so he can't go for the clear on Glaive Bound.
Yeah, I think this is really the only way to go about it. Just accept that your board is going to get wiped here, and just pray that you get some extra damage off the top to try and find the lethal that you so desperately require.
Yep.
That's no healing available for Alan.
Not the best board development
Yeah.
he's gonna get.
Treasure? Loot? What more can I ask for?
Such a beautiful shoe.
Which means off the top, Marrow Slicer is not lethal, but sets up very, very close to that. On the following turn, he gets the Marrow Slicer. 1 damage off lethal. It gets the shuffle he need. And it
is
forces
so close.
Alan to find something in response.
And we've seen double Apotheosis already.
There is no weapon destruction. Wandmaker can find Renew.
Or Radiance, but that is not it. Just GG.
Wow.
Really tense game there. Alan, I thought he had swung it back with the Apotheosis top deck right on time. The turn that Glory decided to finally stop respecting the board.
Yeah, it looked like it, didn't it, at the end there? But I think for Glory, in particular, like Alan, for the most part, I think had some fairly simple turns for the most part, where he was just trying to heal as much as possible, remove as much as possible. There wasn't all too much that could have been done differently for him, though. Glory had some really complicated turns where he could have set up for bigger blade dances, smaller blade dances, in the end, in order to try and just go for removing less off the board. He went for that really weird turn with the silence plus the blade dance all on the same turn, which weirdly enough I think might have been like the winning turn for him, where he just didn't sink too much damage into minions at all. And even though the worst case scenario occurred where the Apotheosis was top decked the turn after, he still managed to find just enough damage to get the win.
Yeah, it was very, very well played from Glory towards the end there. I'm still unsure about the silence play that you were talking about. Like, you and I were
Okay.
arguing about what is the use of silence here. I was thinking he needs to cycle with it, but then he cycled on a turn where you and I didn't think he would end up cycling. It did help remove a minion, but it didn't have the lifesteal yet, which we thought would potentially be the main use for the consume magic. One thing I will say is that the skulls pulled their weight there. I think Demon Hunter, if they want to get the win against Priest, cannot miss a single turn of development and pushing for lethal. And the Skull made sure that when Glory put the threats down, they were consecutive. So Alan never had time to stick a big minion into Apotheosis for consecutive turns.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one thing that I was maybe missing is that, you don't want to fall behind as Priest, but weirdly enough, when you're playing against Priest, they only hit their spout, their power spike turns, when you have already developed onto the board, because they need to hit Kaj on one of your minions. They need to go Cabal Acolyte plus Wave of Apathy to steal one of your minions. If you're doing nothing, they're not really going to do all that much on the other side of the board. Nothing that Demon Hunter can't answer at the very least in the meantime. And I think I've definitely come around to the idea that Glory is going for the Skull of Gul'dan at the start in order to try and make sure he has the continual pressure. Means he's up 2-1. Only the Mage needed now to get a win against the Demon Hunter. Kind of a bad matchup, although we've seen it go the other way today. And the Priest, a matchup that I have consistently held as just being right around the middle for either player.
Yeah, it's really tough to say. I think Toddle put it really well when I was listening to Europe the other day that Mage and Priest are somewhat similar decks in that they rely on generation and playing cards that don't start out in their deck to put together a win condition.
Right.
Priest, though, they start to get more value as the game goes on, whereas Mage can go for the bigger power spikes and they can bully the Priest out of the game that way. But we'll talk about that matchup if it comes up later on, because Alan is starting with a more favorable Demon Hunter.
Glory, full moles for Mana Giants. Only finds one, unfortunately, but I'm sure he'll make do with what he's got there. I do think, in all seriousness, though, with that hand, I really like that players have moved away from keeping Mana Cyclone for the most part in these coin hands, because while it can be powerful, I think in these kind of matchups you want to find the proactive minions to throw down and just start actually trying to dominate the board.
Yep. In general, I don't favor keeping combo pieces except for Apprentice, because it's the one piece that makes every combo a lot more amenable. Pretty good curve for Glory to start out.
Ooh. Yes. I'll take that.
Yeah, while it's in the outcast position as well. Okay, and now
I
he
think
can
I'll take that too.
a couple one-drops. There's some merit to hero powering down the lab partner because of cram session, but then if you play a 1-3 into Solarian, it also feels kind of bad.
I grow impatient.
I mean, you can start with Demon Companion and see what happens, right? Then if you get Refa,
True.
you might go trade hero power and end up with a 2-1.
It's true. You got Polak, then you would take the VP and just put down the Spirit Jailer anyway. Okay.
Yep. Very nicely done. Glory behind in the early game. Not what he wanted to see at all, because he was going to be trying to search, I'd imagine, for the cram session with Magic Trick, and it's only going to go from bad to worse, to be perfectly honest. Marrow Slicer into Soul Shard. Alan doesn't care about keeping board very much at all at this point, because he's just getting enough damage to win the game.
Oh, that draw makes things very complicated. I was going to say before the Blade Dance that I think Alan still has this window to win on board, and because he has Spirit Jailer exactly, he would still have Lapidary available without Marrow Slicer next turn. But now that he has Blade Dance, it's another incentive for getting the Marrow Slicer down as soon as possible. I suppose he's not seen any generated cards yet, so you're not scared of a big push with Mana Giant.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a while, right? Like, we could just see Marrow Slicer on 5, or I guess even like Soul Shard on 5, Marrow Slicer on 6, and then a big Blade Dance turn on 7 is probably lining up pretty well for Alan. Raz?
Oh, this is a sad Raz.
Mastery takes dedication.
Board presence is king, says Glory, and it will feel bad to have this just shot down by Alan's choice of removal.
I think I just
Want to
like
get the lapidary down.
Yeah, exactly. I want a 5/5 in play here as you start to swing back. Like, it means next turn you could even just go Marrow Slicer plus the Blade Dance. It's still a while away from you being able to go Soul Shard and Blade Dance with the Marrow Slicer equipped all in one turn. And because of all that complicatedness, let's just put a 5/5 on the board.
Oh man, where are the apprentices?
Yeah, I mean, it says a lot about how weird of a situation it is where you're offered Frostbolt, but don't take it against Demon Hunter because you're just dying on board way too fast.
That does feel rather sad. I wonder if Glory was ever supposed to just shoot the 2/2 instead to remove more immediate damage on board, given that the 5/2 was frozen. But I suppose he didn't have a guaranteed way of dealing with the 5/2 next turn.
Yeah, it's not even the damage that he's losing to here necessarily. It's like losing board and then taking even more damage over the course of the game.
For Alan, though, it feels like the time has come to start sending everything to the face. He no longer has good minion development, and everything will probably get blown up by Shard Shatter Mystic or Blade Dance or both next turn.
Yeah, it's
Wow,
Demon
the
Hunter's
trade!
favorite time of the day.
Trade.
I was going to say all face o'clock, but I don't know. I wasn't so much a fan of the trade there. I think with Blade Dance, like you're just so likely to be able to clear everything up in the next couple of turns anyway.
The Mystic too. It's
Yeah.
like the Mystic eats up the Cyclone in the case where you don't want to Blade Dance. Soul Shear, Hero Power, Blade Dance.
I think you just Blade Dance, yeah. Like, the main thing you're afraid of in using the Blade Dance is that your opponent then hits you with Giant plus Conjurer's Calling, but Glory's not even playing Conjurer's Calling in the list, and you've just seen 1-mana Giant as well.
It's interesting. The main reason why I wanted to Blade Dance there is just to unlock Skull, honestly.
True, yeah.
But I can understand the reasoning for holding on to it when he has a ton of Marrow Slicer charges to get through, and maybe you run out of wide board sweepers.
Yeah, kind of close. I still think I like just using it to do, like, 2-mana deal 5 damage there is a big swing. Like, don't start thinking about how good it can get. It was just good already.
It's true. And also just the Skull argument, I think.
Yes.
This one
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Okay, fine, Alan.
Oh. Never mind.
Okay, misses the last discount. Huh?
Alas, poor
Okay.
Fragment
warlock.
City. Just Jailer Hero Power pass? I don't think he needs to swing into these O2s at all because he has Shard Shatter Mystic.
Yeah, he doesn't need to swing into the O2s. It's just whether you want to go for the Soul Shear on this turn, which I guess is just unnecessary because you're going to clear everything up next turn. Take your 2 damage.
Yeah, I would have heard the argument for it if he had Militia in hand.
True.
And because he is just gonna Shard next turn, that's why he held Spirit Jailer.
Yeah.
Hero Power Pandara.
Yeah, I think Glory knows.
Glory's hand just did not come together. He spent the Cyclone, now he has a handful of generated garbage.
Yeah, he generated, he didn't draw right, he didn't hit the Cram Session, he didn't hit the Apprentice. Like, all the power cards were just nowhere to be found. Evocation, it doesn't even come close here, right?
Not this turn, but he can take a turn of dump all the garbage he has, like the Devolving Missiles, and Evo the next turn. I wanted to potentially see all of the 1-cost spells, even.
Also, then Flame Strike, like, you're hoping for Apprentice next turn, right? That's the real out,
Right.
rather than just a big Evo.
You can't play the Blade Dance because there's no targets.
Lol.
You just take the unoutcasted skull. That's fine. Horde Pillager is guaranteed to re-equip Marrow Slicer.
Yep. So are you setting up lethal next turn? I guess the question. You put them down to 12, then it would be 4, 8, 9. So Horde Pillager, if it's cleared, which it almost certainly will be, is not lethal.
I see.
Okay, so that's why he's going for even more cycle here. But I think he's got the overdraw. Okay, unless you play the sacrifice here.
Mm-hmm. Smart.
At this point, you don't have the biggest blade dance of all time, but you really don't need it between having Shard Shatter and Eldrazi.
Yeah, this is a clever way to go about things as Alan. He sets up the lethal 100%
Well,
next turn. It needs
this is
to
a
be
lethal setup too!
exactly a
Nope.
very impressive turn from Glory here. Gets the ice barrier. Oh. So if he goes... Yeah, okay, start with that. Get your missiles.
Oh, it's
And
as
you can play another
explode.
secret.
Yeah.
Glory's just in this somehow.
Oh,
Alan has a bunch of healing.
he's
but-
kind of in this. There are draws, you know, if he can go Apprentice off the
Yeah.
top and then hit another Evocation off the Magic Trick, something like that, it's definitely not over.
Correct.
Okay, Counterspell,
Fine.
Spellbender.
Non-negligible healing for Alan here. Gets a bunch of fragments too. That's good.
I think so.
I don't know. The militia is not gonna go off now. And I think he's out of fragment shufflers. The last 3 cards in the deck are Lapidary, One Maker, and Twin. But he very possibly doesn't even need all of that damage. You can just see Glaive Bound, send it to the dome. Blade Dance, sure.
Short.
Not really getting much use out of it anymore.
Then he missed a hero power, right? Unless you want to play
No, he's
Shard
playing
Shatter. Okay, sure. Means
This
that
is
next
such
turn...
a weird game.
It really is, isn't it? We're looking at like 5, 6, 8 damage next turn, so not necessarily lethal setup for Alan quite yet.
Yeah.
Four, 7, 10. He's at
Sorry,
11 health.
It's
10.
10. Right?
Yeah, 10 damage. Sorry, I miscounted.
So still a little, like 1 damage short.
1 damage off.
Glory charging up.
Oh my god.
Lapidary
Fireball?
off the top would not do it, but Twin Slice would. Okay, that's GG.
That is going to do it. Just about enough damage for Alan to be able to take the win there. It was a weird one at the end because, like, if he had gone for hero power over the Shard Shatter Mystic at the end, he would have set up the lethal without needing to get the draw, which I think was, like, almost certainly the better play, but there were secrets that he was playing around. Maybe it wasn't the ice barrier, in which case he gave himself a higher chance of hitting lethal, I think, on that turn immediately. There were a lot of different moving parts there, and I don't want to be too harsh on Alan, because he does end up getting the win anyway, but I think there was a slight room for optimization from him there.
Definitely looked like one of the worst tempo mage draws I've seen in a while, though. Didn't see a single cram session. Glory forced to go for a very lackluster Raz as well. But well played to Alan towards the end for sure. We are going to go to a game 5 now, which definitely love to see. I think with 2 players of this caliber, I wouldn't expect it to go any other way. But the matchup we're ending on can go either very quickly or to the late game.
That is correct. I think usually for the Mage, you do want it to go nice and quickly, but I definitely think this is where the really strong Mage players start to shine, because the tempo matchups, you know, there's always room for improvement in the matchups, but in those ones, as long as you know the cards you're looking for in the mulligan, the hand very often kind of plays itself, or you just go for a big Apprentice pop-off turn. That's enough to just lock out the aggro decks. Against Priest, you need to play in an incredibly different fashion, because you are looking to not purely play for value, because there are avenues to just win through an aggressive route, but you really do need a lot of the time to really milk your deck for these value-heavy effects. Try and find Deep Freeze, Power of Creation, Puzzle Box, Conjurer's Calling. Get as many activations of Solarian as you can to get lots of Solarian primes in your deck for later on. It's difficult to do correctly, but I think Glory has shown a lot of understanding with the Mage deck so far.
The funny thing is, the things you were talking about Mage needing to find are things that Priest can find as well
That's
in
true.
the matchup and get a lot of usage out of them. I think that I tend to favor the Mage a little bit here because they have the potential to both attack from the board front and also just charge up a bunch of burst from hand, which the Priest oftentimes has to choose either or which one they're dealing with. Outside of the combo of Pyro Apotheosis, which I think is what the Mage player needs to be most aware of when they're building board states later on in the game.
Indeed, but before we get to the late game, we need to deal with the early game. Shenvala feels to me like the king of those early game turns, so really not at all surprised to see that being kept. Evocation, though, is an interesting one to keep there, and I do mean interesting not as an allusion to bad, but actually just interesting.
It really is. I mean, I hardly keep Evocation without Apprentice. Shenvala is probably the second most likely card to justify keeping Evocation,
Right.
because if your game plan is just pop off with Shenvala immediately, Evocation gives you a good shot of just generating additional procs, and by the time you do hit Apprentice, if it all comes together, you can just build a board that beats the Priest before they get the Soul Mirror.
Really is a tough one. I mean, as you start moving up the ranks, like, you start realizing the Evocation is a reasonably high mulligan win rate card most of the time. It's not right at the top like Apprentice and Shenvala are, but it's not bad, even if it doesn't have much synergy to go alongside it. Either way, though, it's going to be a very, very impressive start here for Glory, who gets the Cram Session on 2, Shenvala on 3. This couldn't be going much better right now.
It's a massive top deck for Glory, because the punish for keeping Shenvala plus Evocation is that's -2 cards that you don't want to play until around, what, 4 or 5 mana?
Yeah.
And he still just hit the 1 drop into ideal second turn play. For Alan, though, how about another Soul Mirror?
Yep. It's obviously redundant for the moment, but definitely just the most powerful card straight up. The real benefit here for Glory is it could be a game where he doesn't necessarily have to go for Shenvala on 3. This could be dig for Apprentice and then go for the massive pop-off on turn 4 or 5.
That is a very real thing. I mean, for Alan, the Soul Mirror pick, I would say it goes to show that he would pick even the first Soul Mirror from the Cleric of Scales, even though it's so far off from being active. That's just how important it is in this matchup to make sure that when you need it, it's there. Oh my gosh, this is huge though. Tempo Shenvala, but Cabal Acolyte Raised Dead on the other side.
It's just going to be a 50-50, isn't it?
Your mind is not your own.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Good luck, both players.
Dance, puppet.
Ooh.
Well, Glory can still look to charging up a big combo.
That's huge.
Cram Session, yeah.
That is absolutely huge. And there's currently no way for Alan to activate the Shenvala on his side of the board. And now with Apprentice, 1-mana spells, Evocation, and Giant, it's not quite as big as obviously Glory would have hoped for, but this is one heck of a hand.
Yep, the Giant comes down next turn before Soul Mirror. And very possibly everything else gets cleaned up, because I'm seeing Apprentice, Arcane Breath, Ray of Frost, Magic Trick. It's just too much.
Yeah, the sky is the limit, truly, with this hand. He can do so much stuff.
Double Holy Smite is nothing to scoff at, though. That's actually a clear on a Giant with the Pyro if he needs it.
Yeah, a couple of Holy Smittens, not to be sniffed at all.
Okay, we're popping off. Let's go, Glory.
Yep, you need all the time you can possibly get. Let's play as many cards as you possibly can on this turn. Brain Freeze, that costs 0 mana. Solarian is Solarian.
Play the free card. Yup.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like hesitation,
Go,
Glory.
go,
There
go,
is
go,
no
go.
time for this. Play the one thief. play the
Sure.
Black partner. Okay, brain freeze. Take all the brain freezes.
Yeah, Brain Freeze is very good here. Let's take that as well.
Black partner. Okay, whatever.
Sure, yeah, this gets him up to 5, right? This allows him to clear the board cleanly. Of
I
course.
guess he's not even playing Evo anymore after this. Is there time?
Oh, it says explode.
Doesn't feel like there's time for an evocation.
Yeah, I think this is probably a hold evocation play now.
Time runs out on me.
But can he get the giant down? The whole point of this turn was to get giant down, I think.
Surely he can, right? Coin, play, or maybe not.
He can. Yeah, I thought.
Wow.
I think it had to be an Evo just to get the giant down. This board is super vulnerable to Pyro.
What if he'd saved the lab partner, which was not a generated minion, right? That was the one that was actually in his deck. Then he could have gone
Right.
Coin Ray, which would have meant 2-mana giant, which would have been playable. Because of the mana saved from not playing the lab
Yes.
partner.
Yeah, I think that was the line. If you wanted to hold on to Evo, that
Right,
was optimal.
exactly.
Well,
Either way.
For Alan, he can start with the One Maker and then just go like Pyro, Holy Smite plus the thing off of the One Maker.
There's a few ways to take this, right? Like, Twilight Drake into Holy Smite, I don't think is ridiculous, just because it gets such a big body on the board as well.
That's true.
A simple step.
Interesting.
Ooh. He'll be apprenticed. Alan is recognizing that his health total is pretty safe at the moment, and in some worlds he can shuffle a Prime into his own deck. But more importantly, he's holding on to Pyro, which is the most valuable board wipe, and healing tool with a buff. Down into the Soul Mirror.
Yeah, I know. Like, I was thinking about a bunch of things there. Like, I know you can't make the hard read at all on Soul Mirror as a one-of in the deck, that it's going to be there on this turn. But like, do you trade in the Solarian on that turn? Is that ever a thing you're supposed to do so that they can't get their own one?
No.
I mean, the main thing really for me is that this giant wasn't down last turn, so it just doesn't get to attack this game.
That was really big as well. It kind of feels like there wasn't much point in playing this last turn either if you're not going to get the giant down.
Yeah, I mean, it was still pretty big, right? He cleared off a lot of the board, but I agree. It felt stranded between one way or the other.
Okay. Missiles.
I don't even know if this is supposed to be an evocation turn, because you're
I
a
don't
mana...
think so either.
You're a mana away from Power of Creation or Deep Freeze as like the big plays.
Yeah. The best thing you can hope for off of this Evo is card draw, I would assume.
Right, or Generation, which technically has with like Ray of Frost, but this is very underwhelming.
It's not great. Ray of Frost pure entity. Fireball face? Let's go.
Not the most ridiculous thing I've heard today. All right, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of damage. His hand is 1/2 damage and 1/2 could be damage.
Fine, I'm on board. Technically, Alan has like no healing in hand at the moment outside of the hero power, but extremely likely to find it and then pretty much shut down Glory's plan, unfortunately.
There's the apple. Here's Pyro as well. Doesn't really need to play it just yet. It's not that much healing, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't think he's dying on this turn.
I think this lab partner is worth a smite. At this point, you're most scared of Cram Session.
You don't pick
I agree.
the
It's not like
one.
you're going to run out of activators for the Pyro.
Okay.
There are a couple of Solarian Primes knocking about in the deck as well. Mana Cyclone can still be that card that generates the extra value he needs.
Oh, that was
No
that
box
wasn't
there?
a box. That had to be a box.
Surely that was a box. That's what you're looking for off of Cyclone here,
Yeah,
right? Like, that's
it
what this
is.
is all building toward.
That was the win con.
Fair enough. He draws an extra card off of the Icicle.
Okay.
Doubt. Doubt.
Now this can be the big pyro heal turn from Alan if he is scared, and at this point you kind of have the read that Glory is just trying to kill you and he's not trying to get back on board.
Yeah, I mean, the thing for me is that, like, there's a lot of minions on the board right now. That might not happen again for a while. Just take the turn to Reno. Just heal up to full. You just don't really care if your board dies alongside it. I don't think, anyway.
Yeah, and the Twilight Drake isn't even dying, nor is the Pyro.
Exactly.
It's just the two little guys. To be fair, it's not a true Reno because it heals for 6 and then 3 with this board. Wait, no. It
6 and then
heals
5,
for 6
right?
and then 5 and then 3.
That's as close as makes no
Yeah,
difference, right?
it's
Like,
a lot, it's a lot.
I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. We're on the same page. Good job. Big heal, less damage. Glory forced to find something to do. 13 cards left in the deck. I think 2 of those cards are Solarian Prime.
Deck tracker
is it 3?
reading 2, correct? And
Okay.
1 normal Astromancer Solarian as well.
Right. Just mage things. And of course 1 in the priest deck as well, just because.
Wouldn't be a true mage versus priest game without that.
And now, you know, Alan's making that big push onto the board. This is where he's actually making a concerted effort to win the game. With this big push, lock Glory out of things, force him to have a big turn. Glory has a full turn of just stall plus generation. This is a strong turn from him now.
It really is. Another Nova. Oh, okay. I guess this is the Cyclone turn instead. I was thinking the Nova gives him yet another turn of stall, but he's not stalling towards anything to
Yeah,
do alongside it, if not for a Cyclone, so I'm okay with the Ram.
Yeah, I think this is okay. Like, he keeps the other Nova this way, so he still has 1 absolute bought turn, and he generates an extra spell this way. Or an extra
For
2
Alan,
spells.
yeah. For Alan, he also healed the Twilight Drake last turn, I think, with the Inner Fire in mind. As you said, he is now trying to close out the game, which is where Priest can fall behind now and then in the matchup. But suddenly, Glory just has so much value.
It says explode!
He does. Is it the right kind of value, though? I think what this really says to me is that this is premium stall. He can draw 2 cards each turn with the draw into Cram. He can freeze the board until he finds Solarian Prime.
Yep. Oh.
That's a good draw. That draws him 2 cards now.
And you can just play Blizzard still.
Yeah.
Push the 2.
To be fair, I mean, this is pretty powerful. Alan doesn't have that much in the way of responses right now. Maybe just like a mana giant being found is going to be enough for Glory.
It's possible.
He's generated so much value. It's actually staggering.
Yeah. I think this Solarian has to be worth a polymorph at this point, right?
I wonder.
There's already 2 primes in the deck, but
Right, isn't it like
Oh.
bad enough already? Do you just have to go for your own primes to be drawn?
maybe?
Oi, oi, oi.
Yeah, the polymorph doesn't actually let him spend the rest of the mana on anything too impactful, to be fair.
I wonder.
Oh my goodness. Have we reached the point?
You probably don't go Apo first here, right? Like, you could go Apo
No.
on the opposing Solarian to immediately heal, but I don't think the 5 health is worth it.
Me neither. Still has the other Pyro in the deck.
I must
Yeah.
consider.
Interesting.
I mean, as it stands, if Glory does more of the same next turn, minimal board development plus stall, Alan is falling behind, to be fair. So I understand the reasoning for trying to get his own prime, because he just cannot close out the game as it stands.
I mean, it's close, right? Because he needs to get his own prime to answer things back. But if he plays Soul Mirror, he's kind of using a strong answer to shuffle a strong answer into his deck.
Yeah.
Ideally, he has what he needs to do with just Soul Mirror anyway.
Oh my goodness, this deep freeze. Glory just has the value again.
Yeah, imagine
Way
needing
back
box
in
at this point. He's just generated way more than you could ever need with that.
Okay, what can Renew do? Has to be something very impactful. God Steel? They have 2 prime in the deck.
Oh my god, you're right! You're right! That's insane!
Oh,
No!
that's not it.
That's why he should have Soul Mirrored last turn, because then he'd have another chance with Thought Steal to hit it.
Yes.
True mastery takes dedication.
Raz is decent. Deals with the 2 minions on the left, but
Mm-hmm.
Alan's board is perma-frozen from here on out, essentially.
Yeah, it's been a slow crawl to get here, but Glory just isn't the one that needs the help right now. He has... To be fair, in his hand, there isn't that much development. What he really needs to do is prioritize the health of his minions very, very heavily. He needs to make sure that these stick around and use the spells to supplement them, to support them, and allow them to flourish and be the best water elementals they can be.
And I have Glory's hand as my therapist, as my counselor. I want to be a water elemental.
Oh, that's
Yeah, it doesn't-
not the best.
Polly is too scary.
Yeah. Draconic? Yeah.
Looks like it'll end up being a defensive wave even. He could go for the wave plus Soul Mirror, which gives him development and his minions will reset their attack
That's a
at
good
the right
point.
time. But not very much value.
And they will be frozen as well, which is pretty dreadful as well.
Yeah.
It could still be a Mirrors on turn, like, shouldn't be written off quite yet, I don't think. It's maybe too
True.
scary, but, like, he needs to do something to pull this back.
Not too quickly.
Mage Scribe wave.
Hmm. Okay, fair enough.
Magic is not a toy.
Or you can inner fire the Twilight Drake so it's VP something. I'm not even sure where you send this.
Yeah, you can still wave as well. Okay, he's probably keeping himself alive here. It would have to be literally exactly double fireball to kill him at this point, so he should be safe for the moment.
And Giant. Is that
And he's-
actively bad for Glory? If he has a read on Murazond? Because if he goes Giant Nova, Alan just has
Oh,
the same
true.
thing the other way.
I mean, that's where I think that's what he needs to be thinking about at this point, right?
Because he's just been ahead for the past 3
Yeah.
turns.
There's not that many cards left in the deck for his opponent as well.
Brain Freeze I like. As long as it's not Giant plus Nova the same turn, I think he's all good.
You don't pick the ones.
This is very smart. This is very, very smart from Glory.
I like it a lot too. It's still a decent Murrow from Alan, but it would be lethal the other way if it's just Murrow.
Exactly. He still just sets up the lethal through Murazond, unless it hits exactly the Mana Giant.
Now this is the Soul Mirror that Alan was waiting for. You can clear the other water elemental with Holy Smite and just leave the Spellkin. Sorry, you clear the Spellkin.
Yes.
Other one's frozen.
Ellie gets to live another day, continue flourishing.
Living my best life.
Okay.
Prime time. He was
Looking for
drawn
the
it.
prime. Looking for the prime. Could still be an apprentice turn, but it could also be a prime turn. Let's go.
Finally, we have arrived at this point, and that's a banger of a spell to start off with. Okay. Uh-oh.
Okay, slow down, slow down.
Uh-oh, uh-oh.
He gets the other one.
Oh, His last card is Raz, which he will overdraw. That's
Mm-hmm.
a decently good thing for Alan to see
Mirrors
him
on.
overdrawing, but the problem still stands.
It does. Mirrors on to draw 2 and play a 7/7 is good, but I think just a little bit too scary. Like, unless you're able to hit wave exactly, you're just not leaving yourself secure enough, especially as you don't know the
But-
secrets.
The alternative plays don't do much, do they?
Yeah. Cabal, Acolyte, Apotheosis to steal the 1/1 now at this point.
Yeah, probably start with Draconic to play around Bender. I mean,
Your
around
mind is
Counterspell.
not your
Yeah, true.
And then you put the apple on the 3/2.
dance, puppet. Dance.
That makes sense to me.
Just, I think he has to just pray this is not Spellbender.
Just trying to stick a big roadblock in the way instead.
Okay. This
Fair
is
enough.
smart.
Yep.
Means Glory has to expend a lot of resources to clear the way for the elemental Solarian Prime.
This has to be an apprentice turn, right? Like, this is just so powerful.
Oh
Really? It's
my
another
goodness,
prime?
I was gonna say too. It
Oh
has
my
to be.
God.
but
Whoa!
I guess they're both lethal.
Oh, no, that's bad. Okay, fine, whatever. That's bad too.
Ay ay ay. Alan has his own prime. One
Oh my
in the
God.
deck. That's what he needs. Or Pyro.
Sethic, and he does have an activator. Solarian Prime off the Murazond isn't enough.
He's looking for wave. I think that's his
Yeah.
best odds to survive. If the Sethic had to give double Shadow or Death, he'd rather look for wave. Hey, he can hit the Nova.
Or the Ray.
He could stay alive, potentially.
Oh!
that's not the one. Wait,
He can isolate the Prime though, right?
maybe. Missiles cooperate?
Oh!
Second missiles cooperate? Ay, ay, ay.
No! No, no, no. Poor Alan.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's just
Aeon
not getting
Reaver.
there.
So is he technically dead yet? There's so many ways for Glory to ramp up the damage here, but he does not technically have the game quite yet.
Yeah. Just apprentice. Start. Magic trick. Let's go. Okay.
Yep.
Ray,
You wanna
Ray.
Double Ray your own guy
Trade.
as well, probably. After you
Sure.
push it
Have
face.
to attack with it. Just make all the space you can.
Yep. Font of Power gives you 3 minions.
Do you want minions?
Require
Oh, there's
my-
an anti. Okay,
Oh!
you want minions. I thought you're supposed to take the brain freeze to make more room for evocation. I didn't think
You
there were
thought
many
wrong, Gia.
minions that gave you damage, but there's
Yeah, it was a very, very close one. It does mean, of course, that he has well over lethal on the following turn. It has to be a miracle here from Alan to take the win here.
okay. So we're thinking prime into many boxes.
Pyroblast face, like, that's where we're at, honestly. Mirazond into... None of that is good enough.
Gives you a bunch of Ray of Frost, but that's
Yeah.
about it.
Sethic into Apotheosis into... You can't even chain the renews anymore because of how cards can't discover themselves.
Scheme into scheme into scheme into scheme into scheme into... I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see it coming together right now. Oh, he hits the renew as well. I guess he's just trying to find Shadowwood Ruin as his best chance. He can keep the cycle going! Oh, this is torture! This is
Yeah.
pure torture.
Oh, there's really no out. You can't heal
Yeah.
thing and deal with everything.
Happy Hallows End.
Happy Hallows End, says Alan. That was really hard fought, and unfortunately for Alan, he got here through the Division B play-in. So despite this going to Game 5 and it being Alan's first match loss, he will not be able to continue on for another chance at making it to semis.
Yeah, it was such an unlikely avenue for Alan to be able to go all the way through to the World Championships, not being able to lose one series out of the 4 he would have to play to get there. But it is the first hurdle that he falls at in the end. Devastating for Alan, and commiserations to him. At the end of the day, I think we can say, though, given that he ended up in Division B, the fact that he's not relegated is already a relief for him heading into the next season. He's not going to the World Championships this year, but next year, it's a very real possibility for him. Whereas for Glory, as he tweeted out just earlier today, back-to-back World Championships, it's possible. It could happen again if he's able to keep things going. And if he's able to keep a good mental attitude, because I think that's the thing that we've seen him struggling from here, is that he is just a bundle of nervous energy.
True. Glory's dream is still alive, but if he wants to keep going, he will have to face Bank Yugi once again. And Glory already fell victim to the Highlander Rogue earlier today, so we'll see if history will repeat itself. And after that match, we are going to have the relegation bracket starting as well, so plenty more Hearthstone even after that slobber knocker of a series.
That's right, plenty more to come, and we really